Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the Marilyn Darling Show. Today is the 31st of October, and Happy Halloween! So, today we're going to be doing an orange ink with the Jinhao 992 with a 1.1mm stub because that's my favorite. And then I'm going to be taking a break for about a month, so look forward to that. And today is Thursday. Happy Thursday to everyone who is working and doing things of that nature. Super excited to get to hand out candy. Alright. Let's see. No bleed through on the back. I would totally use the back side of this paper. It's a Noodler's Apache Sunset. And Dean Martin was just making a comment that a lot of people aren't fond of Noodler's inks, and that is true. Some Noodler's inks are just not very cooperative with certain types of paper. And some types it is, and there's just no way to tell, except by doing reviews and watching many reviews of the same ink over and over and over again, to make sure that either somebody does a review of the paper that paper pen ink combination that you want to use, or that you know, are going to be using that type of pen ink paper combination. Does that make sense? Anyway, say that I had a Mead book and I wanted to use Apache Sunset, but I didn't know how it was going to go over. So I would look on the Marilyn Darling Show and I would see that he did Apache Sunset with Jinhao 992 with a 1.1mm stub, and it bled like crazy, or, you know, whatever the case may be. And you would see that it bleeds through like crazy. And you would probably say, oh, I really don't want to use this ink on this pen ink paper combination. But you can definitely tell that the Pilot bled way worse than the Apache Sunset. And you can also see that the Pilot Red bled way more than the Noodler's Red Black on the previous Noodler's ink. So it's best to keep a tab of these types of things. You can tell that Monteverde Caribbean Blue bleeds through, and Diamine Salamander bleeds through a little bit. And you can also tell that California Teal bleeds through. So it's best to keep a record of these things. That way you can look back in your records and you can say, oh, Jane Davenport's Mermaid Tail is a bleed monster. Don't use that one in Mead. Noodler's Polar Black bleeds through. Andy Warhol Pop Art Purple doesn't bleed through in the writing, but if you put it down heavy, you know, just these little things. Diamine Magenta bleeds through Mead. So this is just like kind of a look through of the things that bleed. Now, me, I don't care about spread or halo or sheen or shade, except for when it pops really well. And you can tell definitely that a lot of these I've done them over and over again, probably with different nibs and different pens, definitely. And even when you do the same pen with a different, the same ink with a different pen, you'll have a different experience. Like this is Diamine Deep Magenta also, but the previous Deep Magenta, there's Deep Magenta, bled through like crazy. But this one didn't bleed through as much. So I'll have to go back to my notes, figure out which one that was, and maybe write with that one instead. Anyway, this is just a kind of a flip through of which ones bleed through. Diamine Florida Blue bleeds through a lot when used with a Zebra G nib. Vibrant Pink does not bleed through. Monteverde Sapphire does not bleed through. Ooh, Kyanite DePaul definitely bleeds through a lot. So, I mean, just take that with a little bit of grain of salt. This one does bleed through a little bit, but not like, maybe not really bad. We'll look at the other papers along the way. So, let's get into the writing tablet by iScholar.com. See, and there's no bleed through on the back of this paper. So that's pretty cool. I would totally use the back side of this paper to write letters with, because this is pretty much what I use to write my letters with, because it fits perfectly inside of a regular sized envelope. I have too many things going on right now on my desk. This envelope is a little under 6.5. About 6.5. About 6.5 by about 3.5. So the paper is just under 5 3/4. It fits perfectly for this type of envelope. So if you're into that, thought I would let you know. Now moving on to the Walmart memo book by Pen and Gear, 3 by 5 inches. Now, you're looking at this and you're like, oh God, there's no shading. It's supposed to be Apache Sunset. You know, it should have good shading. But like I said in my previous video, I believe that Apache Sunset does better with a fine nib than with a broad nib or a stub nib. Not a whole lot of stuff that bleeds through this one either. This is a Noodler's Apache Sunset. And I don't know which one. Oh dear. That's apparently not Apache Sunset. I must have mixed some Noodlers in there. Noodlers or Pilot Red to make it that orange. But at any rate, there's still no there's Golden Afternoon. Has some excellent shading because I mixed Noodlers with Monteverde. There's Apache Valentine. That's Noodlers and Apache Sunset. Noodler's Apache Sunset and Monteverde Valentine Red. And this one would be probably Noodler's Pilot. Noodler's Apache Sunset Pilot Red. So I want to make sure I make note of that. Because that's not really how dark Apache Sunset actually is. I basically just used the same converter that I had the Pilot Red in to make it darker, just to see what it would do. Made it a nice pumpkin red, pumpkin orange. Apache Pilot. Sorry, now we're going into the CVS caliber notebook, 6x4 inch. And this is what it looks like on here. Punch in. No bleed through on the back. I would totally use the back side of this paper. This paper is something phenomenal. Let's take a walk back, shall we? Of all of the inks that bleed through, this one, Noodler Summer Tanager does. There really is not a whole lot that bleeds through this stuff, which is awesome because it's super cheap and it's really nice. Jane Davenport Mermaid Tail bleeds through. But other than that, nothing bleeds through. This stuff is super strong. Like, it's pretty amazing. So, that's pretty friggin' awesome. Nothing so far has bled through this book. I am impressed. Alright. Now we're going to look at the Fabriano Eco Qua 85 GSM. Moving right along, we've only got about 10 pages of this stuff left. Alright. Pretty much dry after 20 seconds. No bleed on the back. I would totally use the back side of this paper. So, almost every ink that I have doesn't bleed through this one either. Let's take a look, shall we? No bleed through. 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 And no bleed through. Even with Jane Davenport. Where's Jane Davenport? Even with Jane Davenport, she didn't bleed through, which is pretty wet stuff. It goes through everything. So, that's just a look. Alright, let's look at the Birmingham Pen Company 52 GSM Tomoe River paper, 3-ish by 5-ish. let's see, we're going to call this because it looks like a pumpkin. Okay. No bleed through on the back. I would totally use the back side of this paper. Alright, shall we take a trip? No bleed through. No bleed through. No bleed through. No bleed through, no bleed through, no bleed through, and no bleed through. So, Tomoe River paper does a really great job of not letting anything bleed through. And also the CVS Caliber notebook does a really good job of not letting anything bleed through. So, if I had to choose between Tomoe River paper and CVS Caliber, I would choose CVS Caliber because it's cheap and it doesn't bleed. So alright, no bleed through on the back. No bleed through on the back. I would totally use the back side of this paper. Let's take a look back, shall we? So, no bleed through, 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 no bleed through. So this is the only other book that I would consider buying is a Clairefontaine 6-ish by 8-ish, which makes it A4 plus, A5 plus. What are the other? It's a little bit bigger than A5. And I know this because this is A5, and it's just ever so. It's the same tallness, but a little bit thicker. So A5 plus, B5 plus, something like that. You guys can look that up for yourselves if you wish to do so. But Pure Gustafson test. A plus. No skipping, did very fine lines though. So that's good. Alright. What did you think of this happy accident? I don't know what I'm going to label this video yet. So I might just call it MMD Pumpkin. We'll see. That's all for today, so thank you all for watching. Please don't forget to rate, comment, and subscribe. Have a great day. Okay, love you, bye.